There was a scream in the room. It was Ginger, her sister, screaming. She was indignant that she wasn't going to marry that asshole. "Ginger, honey!" With all her might, her mother tried to calm her down. Ginger continued, "How could you even think I would go out with him? Have you heard anything about him? He's obviously a jerk." "That's enough," Dad howled. He asked Ginger to calm down. Her father told her to stop her childishness. Ginger was old enough and should understand everything. "Dad, is refusing to marry a man that everyone thinks is crazy a childish act? Personally, I don't think so," Ginger persisted. "So this naughty child bows out now and leaves." Turned around to leave the girl. The mother tried to reason with Ginger. She said that this was an unusual man. He is the owner of the GV Company Corporation. The mother continued, "You probably don't realize how important this union is to us." "Well, why don't I? I understand perfectly. That's why I think the best candidate for him would be my sister Jennifer," Ginger exclaimed happily, turning to see her sister Jennifer walk in. Ginger hummed and hurried out of the room. "Marriage at my age is a total train wreck," Ginger continued to mutter to herself. "It's a nightmare. You should have raised such a naughty daughter. It's all your fault for not looking out for her." The father raged. The mother began to make excuses that the daughter was right about something after all. The owner of the corporation was a rather peculiar man. He was in the papers a lot, but rarely good. He was always getting into trouble. None of this matters. You just don't realize what a powerful family he has. Father continued to insist on his point. Mother asked him, since this marriage was so important, then let their youngest daughter Jennifer actually get married. The father looked at Jennifer and thought for a moment. He realized that marriage was important, but he had never considered Jennifer as a bride candidate. "I don't think Jennifer is up to the role." The father shared his fears with his spouse. Jennifer stood silently to the side. She bowed her head, examining her shoes. She reminded herself that she was a foster child. She appreciated what her parents had done for her, but she was tired of listening to their humiliation. Jennifer realized it was time for some serious decisions. She decided to leave her father's home. At this point, marriage was the best solution for her. Jennifer loudly told her parents that she agreed to the marriage. Her foster parents were surprised at her decision. They looked in her direction in silence. "I realize I don't possess the necessary qualities. I understand your concerns. But I ask you to give me a chance. I will do my best not to let you down." Bowing her head clearly, Jennifer said. A few days later, Jennifer was approaching the hotel where she had arranged to meet the scandalized son of the company president. The security guard at the entrance invited the girl into the building and promised to escort her to the right place. The hotel was pleasing to the eye with its decoration. Jennifer was worried, because the newspapers often wrote that the prospective groom had the appearance of a monster and the character of a psychopath. The newspapers often reported in their articles about his bad temper and complete lack of social skills. Looking around the room, Jennifer realized that she had no other choice. She would have to face this psychopath if she wanted to get out from under the care of her foster parents. Jennifer didn't understand how she should behave with this man. Although the newspapers ran stories about him, he had never personally interviewed them himself. Therefore, he remained a man of mystery to her. "Miss Jennifer!" The girl was brought out of her musings by a calm male voice. She noted to herself that the timbre was quite pleasant. The security guard introduced the man to Jennifer as the vice president of Steve Grummer's company. Steve motioned Jennifer to take a seat at the nearest table. "It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Grummer," the girl began to say. The girl apologized for her lateness. Steve replied to her that it was no big deal. He just came a little early himself. Steve looked at the girl kindly enough. His gaze was attentive, studying. At the same time, he acted a little distant, as if he were drawing a line between them. Jennifer noted to herself that Steve didn't look like the kind of man the newspapers described. Steve told the girl that he hadn't expected to see her, but her sister Ginger. Jennifer asked Steve if that fact embarrassed him. She received a negative answer. Steve admitted to the girl that he was a little worried about the nasty gossip that was going around about him. Steve told Jennifer that because of those gossip rumors, many girls had refused to meet him. Steve noted that if Jennifer came to meet him knowing all the gossip about him, then she has a good reason. He believes that either she wants something from him, or she was pressured by her family. Jennifer didn't know what to say to those words. She took a sip of coffee to gather her thoughts. What if I say you're right in your suggestions? What will you do then? Jennifer decided to be frank with him. Yes, those were my family's orders. That works out interestingly. You heard what they said, but you came anyway. Taking off his glasses, Steve said. Jennifer admitted to him that she didn't think she was the only one who wasn't afraid of gossip. But you also have secular reasons for coming to this meeting today. After all, you knew beforehand this candidate has been replaced, said the girl to him, looking straight into his eyes. The girl noticed with a smile that from this whole situation, Steve also wants to get some benefit out of it. Jennifer told Steve that this marriage is necessary for both of them, suggested that he not fight and figure out why they both came to this meeting. She advised him to keep things much simpler. The girl suggested that Steve discuss what everyone wants in this relationship. She wished that they would be honest with each other. Steve walked Jennifer to her car. Jennifer thanked Steve for meeting her. She said that she had enjoyed talking to him. Steve asked Jennifer to make sure that she was sure to fulfill exactly what they had agreed to. Since they had decided to be frank with each other, Steve said he only needed one thing. Jennifer had to pretend to be his girlfriend. To everyone, they must seem like the perfect couple. Steve told the girl that from now on, she should always be there for him whenever he needed her. Jennifer replied to him that he shouldn't worry. She was very good at pretending and lying to others all the time. All right then, let's start here. Unexpectedly for Jennifer, Steve said. The girl had absolutely no idea what he meant. Steve put his arms around her, pulled her to him in a sudden movement, and kissed her on the lips. The girl's eyes widened with surprise. I'm sorry, Steve whispered. We were just being photographed right now, so we had to show the reporters a couple in love. So read the news in tomorrow's papers. Slightly taken aback and bewildered by what was happening, Jennifer, Steve put her in the car. Have a safe drive. In the car, Jennifer tried to pull herself together. She was excited. It was her first kiss. Ginger was happy. She was finally able to get rid of her sister Jennifer. For some unknown reason to Ginger herself, her little sister annoyed her. Ginger got messages on her phone. It was from her friends. They were asking her if she had seen the hype that had started on the internet since this morning. The online publications were saying that her sister was marrying the son of the president of the GV company. That's what she should do. Let her marry that psycho. Her friends didn't stop texting. They wrote that they were jealous of her sister since the president is quite handsome. Weird, what are they writing about? What cute guy? What are they even talking about? Ginger clicked on the link her friend sent her. You're as goofy as your mother, aren't you? Wouldn't go against your blood? Do the genes make themselves known? Ginger walked over to Jennifer and took her by the scruff of the neck. I understand you're starved for male attention, but this is over the top, shouted Ginger and shoved the phone in Jennifer's face. The article on the phone read about the handsome son of the president of the GV company kissing a girl on the lips. The question of the two's relationship was raised. How could you kiss a man you've seen for the first time in your life? And why were you seen leaving the hotel? With indignation in her voice, Ginger shouted. Watching their conversation were two cousins, Salma and Samantha. Calm down, Ginger. Even though he turned out to be handsome, he still has a bad reputation, so it won't be a big deal if Jennifer marries him. Cousin Salma tried to reassure Ginger. I wonder what they were talking about that nutcase decided to kiss our little sister, joyfully exclaimed second cousin Samantha. Oh, girls, let's not speak ill of Jennifer's future spouse, said Ginger with a sneer in her voice, turning with her cousins. It pained Jennifer to hear her being mocked. She remembered her conversation with Steve yesterday. He had asked her what he would have to do in return for her pretending to be his fiancée. I want you to back me up. After we get divorced, I'll have nowhere to go back to. Jennifer shared her fears. Don't worry, your labor will be generously paid, assured her of Steve's support. Jennifer told Steve that he was a pleasure to do business with. She was even glad that they had met. Steve replied that he was the one who should be glad, because he would be getting the perfect wife on such favorable terms. Steve reiterated that Jennifer was quite the risk-taker. She was not stopped by gossip and rumors. The girl confessed to him that there is also a lot of gossip around her. Therefore, she can't be frightened by talk. Jennifer admitted that she is used to deal with the situation herself and not rely on rumors. After all, everyone believes what they want to believe. Jennifer decided not to react to the words of her sisters. She decided to distance herself from everything that was going on around her. Younger lady, mistress is looking for you. A maid entered the room and addressed Jennifer. As she left, Jennifer heard Ginger call her arrogant. Is that any way to disregard your sisters, their words, their opinions? Jennifer, along with the maid, entered her mother's room. I see you've succeeded in your game. I told you to get to know your potential fiancé, not take various lewd pictures. Her mother began to reprimand her. Jennifer had no choice but to apologize to her mother for what had happened. Her mother reminded Jennifer that she had been born as a result of her husband's affair. Her husband promised that the girl in no way spoil the reputation of their family. According to her mother, Jennifer's rotten nature is coming out of her, and not even a great upbringing can't fix it. The mother tells Jennifer that the wedding is set for 4 days from now. She won't take no for an answer. Jennifer promised that she would prepare for the event and try to make sure that everything went well. Her mother told Jennifer to always remember that she had everything because of her kindness. If it wasn't for her, Jennifer would never have had this house, a great family, and a wealthy spouse. Jennifer stood silent. She didn't want to cross her foster mother and give her opinion. Jennifer realized that her mother had no credit for her having a family and a wealthy spouse. It was all thanks to Jennifer's father. The mother in this house decides almost nothing. Jennifer and Ginger were on their way to discuss the final details regarding the upcoming wedding. Ginger was on the phone with someone. She said that if the man was smart, he would never have married Jennifer. Jennifer was anxious about their upcoming meeting, so she barely listened to her sister. Steve had seemed like a pretty decent man to her at their first meeting. Jennifer was afraid that his family might be the complete opposite. Oh, and she's dressed like a beggar. How can you take her to any serious meetings? Ginger persisted. Jennifer reassured herself that soon she'd be out of this stifling house. Her life would get better. The main thing is that nothing goes wrong or I'll be even worse off, Jennifer thought sadly. Hey, how long are you going to ignore me? Asked Ginger and poked the girl with her finger. I'm asking you, are you happy with a cool older sister like me? Asked Ginger slightly flirtatiously. And what do you want me to say? Jennifer asked and turned away to the window. Well, at least that I'm extremely charming and you enjoy spending time with me. It makes me laugh that you have the appearance of a sheep, when in fact you're clutching at a man and holding him tight with your teeth, hoping to marry a rich man. Well, that's understandable. We all know that scum are attracted to each other. I hope you and the psycho make a perfect couple. Ginger persisted. She really wanted to piss her sister off, wished she could make her sister cry. Do you really think, sis, that all rich people are scum? Do you think they're as rotten as I am? Still, Jennifer couldn't keep quiet. What did you say in there? Ginger interrogated her. Know that the smelliest place in this town, I consider my big sister's mouth, Jennifer said in a casual voice, turning toward Ginger. They arrived at the appointed place, the driver hurriedly opening the car door for them. Trailing Jennifer's sister screamed all sorts of insulting things. The girl's screams were heard by her father. He asked how she could shout such offensive words. He asked her to behave more modestly. He didn't want to embarrass himself in front of Steve's family. At the table, Ginger continued to bully Jennifer. Jennifer tried to pull herself together and calm down because she had a conversation with Steve's parents ahead of her. She didn't want to get in trouble. Steve and his relatives entered the room. They apologized for their tardiness. Steve's mom extended her hand to Jennifer and introduced herself. She turned out to be the president of the company. Jennifer's dad hurried over to the president and shook her hand in a low bow. He said he was wildly pleased to see them. Mom turned out to be quite a pleasant woman. She admitted that she was glad to meet here on such an important occasion. They sat down at the table. Jennifer was relieved, for Steve's family appeared to be quite friendly. Steve sat across from Jennifer in a strict business suit. He looked collected and stern. Jennifer noted to herself that Steve had looked different the first time they met. He was more relaxed. The girl bowed and greeted Steve. Jennifer's father asked if Steve's relatives had a place in mind for a wedding photo shoot. Steve's mom replied that she had brought some documents with her. She planned to have the wedding in Indonesia. There is an island there that is owned by a company. They are just about to use it as a tourist spot. Steve's mom asked Jennifer what she thought about the island. Jennifer admitted that she didn't want to be wasteful, so she agreed to a more modest option. Steve's mom asked where else to be extravagant than at her own wedding. Saving money on an event like this is not something you should do. Jennifer said she would like a more modest wedding. First of all, such weddings are in fashion right now. Secondly, a modest event will look more cozy. To what Steve's mom noted that the girl is quite smart. Ginger became jealous that her little sister was called smart. She rushed to show off her best side. The girl hugged Jennifer and kissed the top of her head. She wanted those around her to see her as a kind older sister. Ginger decided to show ostentatious concern. She said she was worried about her sister's reputation. After all, photos had surfaced online that compromised her. "Do you think I've embarrassed your sister?" asked Steve, rising from the table. "I realize I acted rashly, but the problem is that I fell in love with your sister the first time we met. I didn't want to let the opportunity to kiss her pass," replied Ginger Steve, bowing his head. "I realize there is no forgiveness for such behavior. I am truly sorry for what happened," Steve continued. Ginger said that Steve might not apologize to her. She was surprised by his behavior. Jennifer's dad and Steve's mom continued to discuss the nuances and possible contingencies of the upcoming wedding. "Don't you find my sister rather charming?" Ginger asked with a smile. Steve answered her that Jennifer was charming herself. Ginger turned to Steve's brother and asked him what he thought of Jennifer. He replied that he had no intention of socializing during the meal. Steve noted to himself that the sisters are completely different in personality. Jennifer is modest and quiet, but Ginger is different. Although this is their first meeting, she doesn't watch her language. Jennifer apologized and got up from the table. She said she had to excuse herself to the ladies' room. Ginger was indignant. She didn't like the way Steve was reacting to her, the way he was acting with her. "What the hell does he think he's doing?" ran through her head. Ginger had absolutely no idea why Steve was defending Jennifer. She also resented why Jennifer was being treated well by Steve's family. They don't know how much Ginger had to go through because of her little sister. At first, Ginger was excited to learn that she had a little sister who would now be living with them. Ginger realized that Jennifer was another woman's child. Mom told Ginger that Jennifer was born because her dad had cheated on her. He had broken her heart. Ginger must have hated Jennifer after hearing that. She stopped thinking of her as her own sister. Jennifer wiped water on her face. She didn't feel well. She was very stuffy. She was also very worried that her sister wouldn't make a scene, but it probably couldn't be avoided. Her sister was in a bad mood today. Jennifer walked out into the hallway. In the hallway, her sister was waiting for her. She grabbed Jennifer by the arm and dragged her somewhere to the side. The girl stopped and tried to break free. Ginger held on tight. Wide-eyed, she told Jennifer that her future spouse and his brother were the real jerks, that she'd figured out her sister's scheme and wouldn't let the latter bring people to her side. "What's going on in your head again?" Jennifer asked. "What schemes? What people? Why are you picking on me again?" "It was your underhanded games that made me look like a fool," Ginger resented. "Let go of me already, you're hurting me. If you want to talk to me about any games, let's do it after the meeting." Jennifer tried again to free her hand. From behind Jennifer, Steve came up behind her and put his arm around her shoulders. Ginger hadn't expected to see him here. She stood with her mouth wide open, quickly figuring out in her head how to properly explain this situation. "I apologize, but what's going on here? Is this some kind of educational work? Is this how the older sister wants to tell the younger sister that she's wrong?" demanded Steve from Ginger. Jennifer was glad to see Steve beside her. "Mr. Grummer, you're talking to me now like you're threatening me." With a sneer in her voice, Ginger said, "What? Are you trying to tell me you're just socializing with your sister, insisting you only wish her well so you're sharing advice?" Jennifer could see that the scandal was beginning to gain momentum. She turned to Steve and tried to reassure him. "Of course, from the outside, it may have seemed that my sister was being rather rude to me, but I assure you that is absolutely not the case. You needn't turn someone's rudeness into a misunderstanding. I've seen everything with my own eyes, and I think I've assessed the situation correctly." Steve asked Jennifer not to vindicate her sister. Jennifer told Steve that it was really a misunderstanding. She put her hand on her sister's shoulder and suggested that she leave. Ginger pushed her sister's hand away and said that she could take care of herself. She would decide for herself if she should go anywhere and when it was best to do so. Still, Ginger decided to leave their company. She turned around and headed toward the dining hall. Steve noticed the bruises on Jennifer's arms. He wondered what was going on in their family and why the younger sister was favoring the older sister. Steve took Jennifer's hand and gently stroked it. Steve pulled a handkerchief from his breast pocket and rewrapped Jennifer's hand. He said he didn't want to see his future wife suffer. Jennifer told him not to worry. After all, she had long been used to being treated this way. "You shouldn't help me too much. I'll try to deal with my problems on my own," Jennifer told him in a firm voice. Jennifer pulled up to the house where Steve lived. Steve's mom was waiting for her on the doorstep. She told the girl that she was glad to see her. She asked her if she had a good trip. Steve's mom invited Jennifer into the house. Jennifer asked where Steve was now. Steve's mom laughed. She said that she was pleased to see Jennifer looking for her future husband. It looks pretty cute from the outside. Jennifer wanted to see Steve to apologize for her behavior. She felt that the last time they met, she had behaved rather rudely. Steve's mom said she wanted Jennifer to meet someone. "Nice to meet you. My name is Stella." The blonde-haired woman extended her hand to Jennifer for a handshake. "This is my first sister-in-law. If you want, you can simply call her Big Sister. I'll be glad if you two get along," said Steve's mom. Jennifer bowed her head in a welcoming bow. Jennifer told Stella that she wanted to learn her manners. "In addition to introducing you to my first bride, I wanted to give you something back," said Steve's mom. She held out her palm to Jennifer. On it was a beautiful ring with stones. Jennifer was embarrassed. She didn't understand why Steve's mom was giving her the ring. After all, it was clear at first glance that it was a terribly expensive piece of jewelry. Steve's mom said that it was a ring her mother-in-law had given her earlier, and now she wanted to give it to Jennifer. She asked that the girl take good care of her son. Tears ran down Steve's mom's cheeks. The girl took out a handkerchief from her bag and handed it to Steve's mom. Handing the ring to Jennifer, Steve's mom admitted that she had been paying a lot of attention to the company and simply didn't have enough time for her son, which at the moment she strongly regrets. Through tears, Steve's mom admitted that it is unpleasant for her to realize that her son is leaving her. The only thing she calms herself with is that he will live with such a wonderful girl as Jennifer. Steve's mom asked Jennifer to think of the ring as her sincerity. Steve's mom asked her to change it and left the room. An awkward silence hung in the room. Jennifer decided to diffuse the situation. She told Stella thank you for the warm welcome, asked Stella to feel comfortable in her presence. Stella replied to the girl that until the wedding was over, she couldn't feel comfortable in her presence. Before the event will behave formally with her. Only after the wedding will they become a real family. Jennifer accepted Stella's terms. When Stella and Steve's mom walked Jennifer to the car, the latter asked her to apologize. She wasn't exactly pleased that the girl had seen her in such an unsightly state. Jennifer asked her not to say anything stupid. She was being natural. Jennifer wasn't sure that she was worthy of accepting the ring. She told Steve's mom about it and reached into her purse to return it as a gift. Steve's mom told her not to be silly and to take the gift back. Jennifer turned to Stella to thank her for today's interaction, for her sincerity. Jennifer got into the car. She squeezed her eyes tightly shut to keep from crying. She hated to deceive such sincere people. She was well aware of how hurtful it would make Steve's mother when they divorced. She was also aware that Steve's mom would hate her after the divorce, but it was too late to back out. Jennifer also thought about the fact that something had probably happened between Steve and his mother. Maybe it had something to do with those nasty rumors and gossip. Jennifer also decided that it was too early to draw conclusions. She needed to watch further developments. Stella smoked in the room without turning on the light. She did not understand why the ring from the leading designer went to Jennifer and not to her. After all, they knew nothing about this girl, and there could be a rotten nature behind her appearance. Also, Stella was embarrassed by the fact that Jennifer had a bad reputation. She had come into the world as a result of an affair and her father. This information was not in favor of the girl. The day of the wedding had come. Jennifer and Steve posed for several magazines at the same time. Photographers kept asking them to look one way or the other. Finally, they were given 15 minutes to take a break. They retired to the dressing room for coffee, to rest a bit. Jennifer was constantly surrounded by people. She wasn't used to any other kind of attention, so she wasn't comfortable. There was a wild commotion all day long. Jennifer had no way of apologizing to Steve for being rude. Steve was sitting behind the girl's back, looking at her with pleasure. The girl could feel Steve's heavy gaze on her. It made her even more uncomfortable. Steve noted that Jennifer looked great today. The girl thanked him for the compliment. She noted that he also looked excellent. The makeup girl asked Jennifer if she was going to have a photo shoot with her friends today. Jennifer replied that no, as they are quite busy people. In fact, she was embarrassed to admit that she had no friends at all. Steve pointed out that he would not be taking pictures with his friends today either. He had studied abroad. so he had no friends in his hometown. Jennifer turned to him and noted that she understood him perfectly. They were called again to take pictures. Steve noticed Jennifer looked rather tired. He asked if she was feeling okay. The girl replied that she was fine. She was just exhausted from the photo shoot. Jennifer decided to chat with Steve. She said that she liked the way he behaves in front of the photographer. She thought he was more photogenic. Steve admitted to her that he was just following the photographer's commands. Although he said it in a calm voice, for a moment there was loneliness and anger in his eyes. Jennifer thought that unlike his brothers, Steve is not public. He avoids any interviews, rarely caught in the lens of the paparazzi. She was interested in the reason for this behavior. Steve asked Jennifer if they should take regular pictures. She didn't understand the question. Steve explained that all those photos were for the media. He suggested that they do the regular ones, like all the ordinary married couples. Jennifer glanced at Steve and she replied in agreement. Jennifer changed into casual clothes and walked up to Steve's room. The girl knocked on the door. "You said you wanted to take pictures like normal couples. That's why I came to see you." The girl curtly blurted out those words and froze in place. Steve stood before her naked to the waist. "Oops, I must have picked a bad time," Jennifer said, embarrassed. She blushed and took her eyes aside. Steve told her that it was no big deal. He invited her to his room. Steve motioned for her to sit down while he got dressed. The girl's hands trembled slightly. She hadn't expected to see Steve half naked. Her heart was pounding wildly in her chest. The thoughts in her head were confused. She didn't feel comfortable being in his room. She was pulled out of her musings by Steve's voice. He was calling her name. Steve touched the girl's shoulders. This startled her wildly and she cried out loudly. Jennifer jumped up sharply, losing her slipper. "Oh, my slipper!" the girl exclaimed. Steve reached for the slipper. He told Jennifer not to worry. He would do it all by himself. Kneeling down, Steve nudged the slipper to the girl. Jennifer admitted that she was uncomfortable that Steve cared so much about her. Steve said that there was absolutely nothing wrong with that. He wanted her to do something for him too. Steve held out his hands to her and asked her to button the buttons on her sleeves. "I just can't do it on my own," Steve explained to her. Steve asked the girl if she was embarrassed by the fact that he was asking to continue. As the girl buttoned the buttons on her sleeves, she thought Steve was considerate of her. Such an attitude was pleasing to her. Steve and Jennifer decided to have a photo shoot on the city beach. The girl was quite aloof from Steve. She tried not to get close to him. "Why don't you come a little closer to me? After all, we've decided to do a wedding photo shoot, like a real married couple. Do you remember that?" said Steve, and stepped close to Jennifer. "Of course I remember. I promised to play real wife," said Jennifer and took selfies with Steve. "I guess that's a little off," said Steve after seeing the resulting pictures. Jennifer said that she looked pretty weird in the pictures. Steve, however, parried that as weird as she turned out, she was at least better than him. Jennifer suggested smiling brighter in the photos. Make her face look happier, then the pictures would be more beautiful. The girl reached her hands to his lips to make a smile. "You need to relax your face. Then you'll come out softer in the pictures." In a quiet voice, the girl explained to Steve. Steve took the girl's hands in his. Jennifer was startled and pulled her hands out. She said she was tired from the photo shoot. The girl suggested a little walk on the beach. Jennifer corrupted herself that she was trying with all her might to avoid Steve's touch. She was afraid that he might not like it. Steve noticed that the girl was upset about something. Steve asked the girl if she liked walking on the beach. Of course the girl liked the beach. It was one of those times when she could enjoy her vacation. No one was standing over her and controlling her. No one was telling her what to do. She enjoyed the beauty of nature. Steve shouted to Jennifer to be careful. The tide was starting to come in and her feet could get wet. The girl was not embarrassed by this at all. On the contrary, the waves surprised Jennifer. They were cold and tickled her. The girl waded even deeper into the water. "What about you, Steve? Do you like the sea?" Steve pulled out his phone and started taking pictures of Jennifer. Her eyes were glowing with joy. Jennifer stepped out of the water. She lamented that she hadn't taken off her shoes. After all, she had probably ruined her sandals. Looking at Jennifer rejoicing in the water, Steve asked if this was her first trip to the sea. The girl confessed to him that before she had only seen the sea in snippets when she drove by. It was her first time at the beach. This conversation brought the girl back to the past. After all, she spent her childhood like a bird in a cage. Ordinary human joys were inaccessible to her. That's why she was in a hurry to get married, to change her life somehow. "Well then, We'll go back to the hotel only after you've fully enjoyed your vacation, suggested Steve to her. This news pleased the girl. The day of the wedding had come. Grandpa, the wedding planner, told Jennifer that the guests had already started to arrive. Ginger entered the room. She asked her sister if she was okay. Was she okay with the fact that she was picking up her sister's rejected man? God, I'm so sick of her. Just an eyesore. Jennifer thought, but said out loud that she was doing fine thanks to her sister. You know, you shouldn't act like a bride. Always remember that you were simply sold. I wonder how much money was spent to adorn a beggar like you. Ginger persisted. You know, dear sister, rather than continue such nonsense, you'd better go help the guests, Jennifer said in a firm voice. Why should I entertain them? They've come to talk about money, about business. They're not interested in your wedding at all. You're just a pretty screen bought with money. Doesn't it bother you that you were offered to be the screen in the beginning? Jennifer's words infuriated Ginger. And on top of that outfit doesn't suit you at all. It makes you look like a virgin ghost. Jennifer was no longer shy in her expressions. Do you know how much that outfit cost? You wouldn't dream of that kind of money. Ginger was throwing thunder and lightning. I don't know. The dress isn't going to get expensive. You should go change or you'll never get married. These words from Jennifer were the last straw for Ginger. She flew out of the room, slamming the door. That dress is just beautiful. It fits you perfectly. Jennifer turned at the voice. There was Stella standing in the doorway. Stella told Jennifer that she had come to support her. There would be a lot of people at tonight's event that were unfamiliar to the girl, and they will absolutely all be talking only business. Two strange men entered the room. They approached Jennifer to congratulate her on her wedding. These men were quite influential, so Jennifer tried to communicate with them as respectfully as possible. I'm Henry Rogers. The gray-haired man introduced himself and extended his hand for a handshake. He admitted to Jennifer that he had heard from others about her beauty. Many say she is a smart girl. The words made Jennifer feel embarrassed. Please understand, Mr. Rogers. She greets you sitting down because she's having trouble with her dress, said a nearby standing Stella. A surprised Jennifer turned her head toward her. Henry told her back that such little things didn't bother him. He didn't even pay attention to it. Henry turned to Jennifer and asked her what events she liked to attend. Jennifer didn't know what to answer, since her life was pretty boring. She said that it was quite difficult to attend meetings in her circumstances. Stella once again came to her rescue. She said that the bride was rather modest, so she rarely devoted events. The men said they didn't have time to say hello to everyone, so they hurried back to the hall. When everyone was out, Stella asked Jennifer what she meant by, "in my circumstances." She asked the girl not to tell anyone about her past. After all, a story about a mistress and a child out of wedlock would only complicate things. Stella noticed that Jennifer had shut herself away. She hurried to apologize. She didn't want her words to hurt the girl. Jennifer decided to reassure Stella. She said it was okay. She understood Stella's concern. Although Jennifer spoke softly to Stella, she realized that the latter wanted to make her look bad on purpose. The two waitress girls called Jennifer into the lounge. Stella told Jennifer that she would meet the one inside. How stupid is she? Stella said quietly as Jennifer walked away. Jennifer was led down the aisle by her father. Just please don't be an inconvenience to this family. In a quiet voice, her father asked. That's exactly what I wanted to hear at my wedding, Jennifer thought bitterly. Jennifer walked over to Steve. He looked flawless. Jennifer took Steve under her arm. The girl was getting very nervous. To console herself, Jennifer called the wedding a sham. People came here just to show off their luxuries. Today is no different from any other day. Throughout the ceremony, Jennifer stood virtually breathless, with her head bowed low. Steve did not understand this behavior. He asked if everything was normal for the girl. The girl admitted that she was fine. She was just agitated. Well then, I apologize again, Steve said and kissed the girl on the lips. Jennifer really hoped that this marriage would help her escape from her past life and the constant publicity game. Jennifer went out into the hallway. There was a stand with photos. The girl was particularly interested in one picture. Did you just see it? Steve asked her. He inquired if she liked the picture. She said she liked the picture a lot. The only thing is that Steve isn't in it and she's completely makeup-free. As a child and teenager, Jennifer was always dressed in the best clothes, always watching her behavior. But she realized that they did this not because they loved her, but because they saw it as a flaw. She was constantly trying to be hidden from the eyes of others. Jennifer was struck by the fact that Steve wasn't afraid to expose her without makeup, with her hair ruffled by the wind. "I love this shot because I'm the one who took it." Steve brought the girl back down to earth. She'd thought he'd put the picture up because he thought she was beautiful. In reality, he was just admiring his work. Steve asked Jennifer again what had happened to her before the ceremony. He saw the look on her face. She was pretty upset. And excitement he couldn't believe. Jennifer remembered Ginger and Stella stopping by to see her. "My half-sister came to me in a white dress to mess with me again, and Stella is acting wary. I can't figure out how she really feels about me." That's exactly what Jennifer wanted to say, but was afraid to. Jennifer once again had to deceive and play around. She faked a smile and told her to be fine. There was no cause for concern. Steve offered to carry her bag to her room. He said she looked rather tired. The girl declined as she thought Steve was tired too. In the room, they sat down at the coffee table to discuss tomorrow. Steve told the girl that there was something he wanted to show her. Well, if she was tired, he would show her next time. Jennifer wondered what it could be. Steve got up and went into the other room. Steve came back into the room with a box in his hands. Steve pulled out wine and 2 glasses. Jennifer asked him, "Why the wine?" Steve answered her that they were partners from today, so it needed to be communicated. The girl was confused and overjoyed. Steve asked the girl what would be such an interesting thing to do after they uncorked the bottle. Jennifer didn't have any suggestions as she liked to drink alone. Steve filled the glasses and made a toast. "May everything we set our minds to from now on work out." Jennifer thought to herself that from this moment, she was entrusting her life to Steve. The girl asked Steve when he had time to buy wine, since he had been busy all day. Steve admitted to her that he had popped out to the store when Jennifer had fallen asleep in the car. Jennifer liked the wine. It was mild and quite flavorful. "I noticed your hair is straight," said Steve. "Yeah, why are you talking about that?" the girl asked him. Steve admitted that they seemed different to him on the beach. Jennifer answered him with a smile that she hadn't had time to smooth her hair before going to the beach. Steve wondered why Jennifer was smoothing her hair. After all, she has pretty hair, and when it's curly. Jennifer had to admit that as a child, her sister Ginger had told her to straighten her hair all the time. Jennifer's curls annoyed her. It reminded her that her sister had been born a different woman. Steve praised her for being willing to make concessions to keep peace in the family. Jennifer admitted that she had behaved in a variety of ways. Therefore, to judge her by one act, it is not worth it. There have been times in her life where keeping the peace was impossible. Jennifer decided to change the topic of conversation, so unpleasant was it to her. She picked up the bottle of wine in her hands and asked where Steve had bought it. Jennifer decided that from now on she would talk about topics that she was comfortable with. She doesn't want to talk about her family anymore. Let them stay in the past. "Do you think we should go out together? Or will we have another chance?" Steve asked. Jennifer really liked the idea of going for a walk. Steve told Jennifer that today they would have the same room. Doesn't that make her uncomfortable? She said that it should be. After all, what kind of couple are they if they sleep in separate rooms? "In addition, on our wedding night we should definitely be together," said Jennifer, pouring herself another glass of wine. The girl realized, you had said something stupid. She hurriedly excused herself that the wedding night had to be believable to others. Steve put his arm around her shoulders and told her not to worry. He had gotten it right. At that moment, Jennifer's hand trembled and she poured wine on Steve's shirt. The girl embarrassed herself even more. "I'm sorry, please. I'm so sorry I ruined your shirt." Jennifer grabbed a napkin from the table and began to quickly wipe the red stain. Steve had to put his arm around the girl to finally calm her down. He said he was going to take that shirt off and things would get better. Steve forcibly put the girl in the chair and said that he would throw the shirt in the wash, and he'll wash her body in the shower under warm water. He has absolutely no idea why she's panicking. The girl confessed to Steve that she is glad that she is in a relationship with him, although not a real one. She's not even embarrassed by the fact that his girlfriend was originally supposed to be his sister. Steve was surprised by her words. "Then we can consider ourselves to be a happy blessing to each other," Steve said with a smile. Their conversation was interrupted by a loud knock on the door. It was Ginger. She demanded that her sister open the door. Jennifer said, coming out to see her sister herself now. She can take care of herself and take care of this problem. Steve had already had time to change his clothes. He asked Jennifer why she was trying to work things out on her own since he was here. "I'm not used to being helped," Jennifer admitted. Jennifer asked Steve not to leave the room until she kicked her sister out. Okay? How can you cheap scum, live in an expensive apartment? Do you really think your man's wealth will make you anything expensive? You're going to stay cheap like that, shouted Ginger. You have a few minutes to leave this room. I'm sick and tired of listening to insults. If you don't leave now, you're going to be in trouble. Jennifer decided to fight back against Ginger. You have no idea how much misery I've had to endure because of you. If you weren't in our family, things would be so much easier. Ginger pushed Jennifer's chest. Your birth was a terrible mistake. You have no idea what it's like to live in the same family as a bastard. With tears in her eyes, Ginger spoke. So how do you want me to solve this problem? Shouted Jennifer in her face. It was your parents who decided to take me into the family. It wasn't my wish, so go complain to your mom. What are you, a huffer, out of your mind? Watch your language, shouted Ginger and grabbed Jennifer by the hair. Steve was disgusted to hear what was going on outside the door. He had a wild urge to intervene. Still, Steve couldn't resist and stepped out into the hallway. I hope your life is even more miserable than your mother's, Ginger exclaimed in her heart. Steve walked over and helped Jennifer up. What absurd behavior. And most importantly, I have absolutely no idea why you're acting this way with your sister, said Steve. Jennifer and Ginger's mom rushed to the newlyweds' room. She had gotten a message from her newfound son-in-law. He was asking her to intervene in the situation. The woman realized that there was no way they should lose such a son-in-law. The woman realized that Ginger had probably caused the scandal. She had asked her not to swear in public. The panting woman flew into the room. The woman didn't know what to do. Her drunken daughter was asleep on the couch, her angry son-in-law standing nearby. Steve told the woman that a drunken Ginger had barged into their room and punched his wife in the face. The woman began to apologize. She said that beatings were not accepted in their family, that it's usually sisters jokingly pushing, playing around. Ginger is acting aggressive today because she's had a lot to drink. In the next room, Jennifer could hear her mother making excuses. She said that Ginger wasn't aggressive per se, that Jennifer was probably the one who had provoked her. At the end, the woman asked her son-in-law to keep the story a secret. No one needs to know about this. The woman lifted her daughter off the couch and led her out of the room. Steve was upset that his mother-in-law hadn't even inquired about Jennifer's condition. I should have intervened in this situation sooner, Steve thought to himself. Steve knocked on the room and asked Jennifer's permission to enter. The girl was sitting on the bed staring blankly at one point. Steve walked over to the girl. Jennifer remembered how they had been competing with her sister since they were kids. Ginger had always been jealous of Jennifer. She was annoyed by her sister's successes, her academic achievements. There probably wasn't a day that they lived it in peace. Jennifer was pleased by Steve's concern, but didn't want to involve him in the situation. The girl also realized that she was angry with Steve, since he had promised not to go out either. Jennifer heard Steve coming toward her. She looked up at him. Sorry, I didn't notice you right away, I was thinking, Jennifer said to him. I apologize for showing my naughty side. Turning away and lowering her head, said Jennifer. Steve walked over to her and told her that it was her sister who was being disgusting, not her. He asked how her cheek was. Was it swollen? I told you I'm used to it, so it's fine. I'm sorry, please, I'll probably go to bed. I'm really tired from today, said Jennifer and started to make up the bed. Jennifer fell asleep rather quickly. Steve walked over to the nightlight to turn off the light. Jennifer woke up and called Steve's name. She asked Steve if he was really more shocked by his sister's behavior than by hers. Steve admitted to her that they were generally similar in personality. He also doesn't like to have his life interfered with. Jennifer, you're a fighter. You'll never ask for help even if you've already been hit. And why did you ask not to go out? Steve asked her a question. I don't know, whispered Jennifer. You know it's a stupid thing to not ask me for help. If I had stepped in, this would have been over a lot quicker. You'd help me without even knowing me? Jennifer asked with comfort in her eyes. Jennifer said that Steve would never know the real her. And even if she told him about herself, he would never understand her mental torment. After all, what could he possibly understand a spoiled boy who grew up in the heat? I didn't grow up in a warm room. I grew up in a mental hospital, Steve confessed to her. I'm sorry for my tactlessness. Jennifer apologized to him. Steve decided to tell her about himself. Once upon a time, a very long time ago, his family had been cruelly cheated, which was why he ended up in the hospital. I was being asked for things I didn't do. I was accused of things I didn't do. I didn't trust anyone and I was lonely. I had to agree with everything to be left alone. Sharing his childhood experiences, Steve said, I was like you. I'd do anything to get out of that place. You probably thought, like everyone else, that the story about the mental hospital was just a fabrication. Steve asked Jennifer. She had to say that it wasn't at all. That's why Steve wants to protect her. He remembers how hard it is without protection and support. Jennifer felt ashamed. Steve always wanted to help, and she was angry with him. She thought he was meddling in the wrong business. Jennifer asked Steve that they no longer cross the line of personal space. She was grateful for his help, but she didn't want anyone to interfere in her life. The girl suggested that they keep their business relationship. Steve sat by Jennifer's bedside for a while. He pondered what the girl had said to him. He realized with her words she wanted to indicate that there was no relationship between them. Steve remembered Jennifer the first time they met. The girl had acted seriously, like a skilled negotiator. She had discussed even small details, clearly stating her position. Steve admitted to Jennifer that he had been told about her passive, closed character. In fact, she turned out to be completely different. When they first met, he extended his hand to the girl for a handshake. She said it was wrong for their relationship. Jennifer put her palm in his hand. Since we're supposedly engaged, it would be better if we started walking like this. Jennifer began her game of Bridezilla. It was painful for Steve to look at Jennifer now. She was lying there like a beaten puppy. Steve touched the girl's face. He gently stroked her cheek. Steve wanted her to recognize the real him. Jennifer woke up to a severe headache. The alcohol she had drunk and the stress was taking its toll. The girl turned around and saw Steve sleeping on the floor. He was sleeping sitting up, leaning against her bed. Out of surprise, the girl exclaimed. Jennifer's ocklick woke Steve up. Good morning, Jennifer, Steve greeted her. The girl wondered if he had slept all night in that posture. Jennifer said that Steve's body would probably be sore all day now. The girl shared that she barely remembered last night. She asked if everything had been okay, if she had made any mistakes. Steve told her that nothing was wrong, everything was fine. Steve leaned over to the girl and told her that it would soon be breakfast time. He warned her that he was going to shower first. Steve and Jennifer had breakfast with their family. It went well. The people present were friendly and nice. Already on the doorstep of the restaurant, Steve's mom asked Jennifer's mom why she had eaten so little. Did she have any problems? Jennifer's mom tried to dodge the conversation. She said, I'm generally fine. It's just that Ginger went somewhere tonight, so she's a little worried. Jennifer decided to help her mother. She told her not to worry. Ginger is probably going through her things. To get away from the unpleasant conversation, Jennifer's parents hurriedly left. They quickly said goodbye and pointed toward the car. Steve suggested Jennifer take a walk. He didn't feel like going back to the room right after breakfast. Jennifer said it was a great idea. The only thing was that she had forgotten her outerwear at the restaurant. Steve said that was okay. He would go and get it quickly now. Jennifer was left alone to wait for Steve. Someone called out to the girl from behind. Steve took Jennifer's outerwear and headed for the exit. He saw the girl chatting with someone. From around the corner, a young guy with a beard approached Jennifer. He held out some kind of sheet to Jennifer. Steve didn't like some guy hanging around Ginger. Who are you? Asked Steve to the guy with the beard as soon as he came out of the restaurant. Is this your classmate? Asked the guy with the beard to Jennifer. No, I'm her husband, challenged Steve replied. So you two are a couple, disappointed the guy with the beard. And it would probably even be weird if she was single. The guy continued to speculate aloud. We're newly married, just had our wedding yesterday, explained Steve to him. Oh, I see. Well, congratulations then, shouted the guy to them. Steve turned away from him, putting her coat around Jennifer's shoulders. I beg your pardon, did you happen to study somewhere in the northern part of America? You just have an interesting accent, asked Steve's boyfriend. Yes, I studied there. I graduated from Green University, told Steve to the guy. You know, it's fate. The thing is, I'm an alumnus of that university too. It's so exciting for me to meet someone from my university in another country. I'm very happy to meet you, said the guy and shook Steve's hand. I appreciate it, but unfortunately I don't have time to socialize right now. The thing is, I'm on my honeymoon, so this is the time I want to spend with my wife, Steve said apologetically. Steve and Jennifer turned their backs to the guy and hurried away. The guy thought to himself that Steve seemed very familiar to him. He speculated that they might have been in the same course. The guy strained his memory for a while, and yet he remembered. Yes, he had seen him at the university. The guy pulled out his phone and called someone. Steve walked in silence. Jennifer looked into his face and asked him if he was angry about what had happened. Steve replied that he wasn't. Why would he be annoyed? Steve told Jennifer that he just wanted to shield her from an unwanted admirer. Jennifer asked Steve if he remembered the bearded guy. She was under the impression that they knew each other, maybe even socialized at the same company. Steve answered her that it was unlikely he knew the guy, and they weren't good friends. He had only had one close friend during his studies. His close friend Steve would definitely recognize. Steve told Jennifer that he even knew his friend's parents. The friend was special to him. A woman entered the room and woke the sleeping Christopher. She told him that the phone was ringing. Christopher picked up the phone. It was his friend Chris calling. "Christopher, I have incredible news for you. I just met your friend," broadcasted Chris into the phone. Chris told his surprised friend that Steve had gotten married and was on his honeymoon. He has a beautiful wife. Christopher was surprised how his close friend could get married and not warn him about it. After all, they had a special relationship at the university. Steve apologized to Jennifer, saying he needed to go get some water. Jennifer looked at the schedule she and Steve had made. He was due back to work soon. Today was the last day they would be able to go out like this. The phone rang in Jennifer's hand. It was her mother-in-law calling. Jennifer was a little startled. She asked if everything was okay. Maybe something had happened. The mother-in-law admitted that she had a favor to ask Jennifer. "Yes, okay. It's great that Steve and I are going to go there together," replied Jennifer into the phone. A few days later, Jennifer was already sitting in her car enjoying the sights of New York City. Her mother-in-law explained that Jennifer and Steve would need to attend an important event. The meeting was for the release of a new smartphone. The mother-in-law herself couldn't go, as she was busy at work. Steve turned to Jennifer and said that he apologized for her having to travel here. He promised her that once they got home, they would be sure to vacation together. Jennifer asked him not to worry about the trip. On the contrary, she was interested in attending the event. It would be a good experience for her. Jennifer confessed to Steve that she wants to develop. She is interested in learning something new, going to various meetings. She does not want to be the empty person she was before marriage. She feels that attending and participating in events is an asset. Steve told her that they probably won't be attending such events anymore. There was just a huge crowd at the event, with camera flashes everywhere and reporters running around. Steve and Jennifer drove up to the hall. The husband helped the girl to get out of the car. Journalists immediately jumped up to them. They asked, "Is it true that Jennifer and Steve are married? How do they feel about being a family? Is it a marriage of love?" All these questions absolutely did not embarrass Jennifer. The girl was surprised that even at the entrance, there was a large number of people. Steve explained to her that this was an important event. This smartphone they release with great expectations. At this meeting will be all the people who spin in this field. With a little apprehension, Jennifer asked Steve if they would need to do anything at this event. Steve replied to her that they would only need to show up and go. As soon as Steve and Jennifer entered the auditorium, people immediately started coming up to greet them. Jennifer saw people looking in their direction, whispering about something. But it was something she had been expecting. It was an expected reaction for her. Jennifer took Steve by the sleeve and told him she needed to go outside. In the hallway, Jennifer breathed a sigh of relief. It had been a long time since she had been to an event like this. She needed to calm down and pull herself together. A man walked next to Jennifer. He was on the phone, so he didn't notice the girl. The man caught Jennifer's elbow. He looked up at her and apologized. "It's you!" the man exclaimed. The man asked Jennifer if she remembered him. They had seen each other, but quite a while ago. Jennifer remembered the man perfectly. He was nothing in her eyes. They were classmates. Howard, that was the man's name, had often mocked her, enjoyed making fun of others. But to her face, the girl said she didn't remember him at all. "Yes, it's strange. We went to school together, didn't we?" said Howard in surprise. The girl tried to say goodbye to him and leave as soon as possible. She told Howard that he was probably wrong. They didn't know each other. "You've got to be kidding me? It's me, Howard. You can't not remember me." The guy didn't bother. Howard asked Jennifer what she was doing at this event. Didn't she also come here because of the smartphone release? Jennifer told him she was, but she has to go. No time to socialize. Howard blocked her aisle with his hand. Howard told Jennifer that he did not expect to be here at this event. He is very excited about this meeting. Howard said he has some free time, so he wants to have a couple drinks with her. Jennifer replies to him that she doesn't have time, so she declines. Hey, don't be such an underdog, said Howard and grabbed Jennifer's shoulder. I told you I have time and I want to have a drink with you. The guy continued to press on. Jennifer remembered being grabbed by her foster mother in this manner as a child as well. Jennifer became furious. She pushed Howard's hand away and told him not to grab her like that. Why are you acting like this? Does your spouse know you molest women? I told you not to touch me. Jennifer was indignant. Howard held up his hands as if to make it clear that he didn't mean anything by it. Howard admitted that he was recently divorced. Therefore, he has no barriers to socializing with girls. Howard told Jennifer that he can see in her eyes. The girl remembers him. So why is she hiding it? Howard asked the girl not to leave. He said he knew some great news and he wanted to share it with her. You know that the youngest son of the president of the GV company is a psycho, right? And he is at the event in question right now, whispered Howard, leaning in close to Jennifer's ear. There's a rumor going around that the psycho got married. After the wedding, he started showing his face in public more often. By the way, the girl he married brought them a lot of money in their dowry. They say she's not all right in the head either. Jennifer laughed. Howard admitted to her that he also thought the situation was funny. That's me, said Jennifer. Howard looked at her with a misunderstanding look. That dowry psycho is me. You don't know the main gossip. With a smile in her eyes, Jennifer said, You're the one who married Junior? Howard asked, surprised. You know, I'm a little surprised. How could you marry a schizo? Scratching his head, Howard asked. You know, Steve's a good man. Rising to her husband's defense, Jennifer stood up for him. The girl asked not to worry about her fate. She is old enough so she will decide for herself who she will marry. Howard told the girl that he would like to meet her in a cozy place, in a more private setting. He suggested that she choose the place and time. The girl was confused. She didn't understand what Howard was implying, why he was suggesting such a thing. Howard put his hand to the girl's face and asked her not to pretend that she didn't understand. He said it's common in the conglomerate, isn't it? Jennifer, you haven't been back in a while. I thought you were lost. Steve approached them. He saw Howard pull Jennifer's arm. Am I interrupting your communication? Steve asked Jennifer. Honey, why did you just show up now? Asked Jennifer to Steve. Steve was surprised to hear the address darling, but he didn't give any sign. Steve realized that the girl was playing. She needed it for something. Howard, on the other hand, was shocked by this. You see, honey, I met my classmate. We decided to have a little chat. Jennifer continued to play the role of a woman in love. Howard realized that he had to get out of this situation somehow. He didn't want to get involved in a scandal with the son of the president of the GV company. The consequences could be quite unpredictable. Steve extended his hand to Howard and introduced himself. Howard also introduced himself and identified himself as Jennifer's classmate. They shook hands. You must have a lot to discuss with my spouse? Steve asked. Howard said that they had already discussed everything. He had to go. Howard quickly turned around and hurried into the hall. Jennifer thanked Steve for coming. The conversation with Howard was getting pretty heavy. Upon arriving home, Jennifer decided to give out small gifts to her relatives. She hurried over to visit her mother-in-law. The presidential aide invited Jennifer to see the room prepared for them. Jennifer turned to her spouse and asked his permission to go look at the room. The girl noticed that their relationship had changed slightly since the trip to New York. It seemed that Steve was a little angry with her. Sure, go, Steve allowed her. Steve sat alone in the room. Oh my God, son-in-law, you're back! With a cheerful exclamation, Ginger walked in. Ginger wore the most beautiful dress today. She wanted to impress Jennifer and Steve with her appearance. Steve asked the girl where she was going today. Ginger answered him that she was just dressing like that. What made him think that she had decided to go out? Steve answered her that she looked like she was going to a party. No, I walk around the house that often. Unlike my sister, I like to change outfits. I don't think it's appropriate to walk around the house in my pajamas, explained Ginger to Steve her position. Ginger sat down next to Steve. Steve didn't understand why, of all the seats in this large room, she chose to sit on the couch next to him. You know, and I had a question. What kind of girls do you like? Asked Ginger. It's simple. I like girls who look like my spouse. Without blinking an eye, Steve replied. Yes, of course I realize that. But you were originally supposed to meet me, weren't you? Ginger continued. Steve replied to her that he was aware of that. You do realize that we could have become a married couple, right? Continued Ginger's rash of questions. I want to warn you that my sister's temper is pretty heavy. You'll have a hard time with her. And in addition, You know that children with a dark past have a strong sense of uncertainty and are quite volatile. Steve asks Ginger if she thinks saying that about her sister is rather rude. He doesn't like that she speaks cavalierly. It makes him uncomfortable and annoyed. Jennifer looked around the room prepared for them, explained to the maid where to put their things. She hurried to the hall so Steve wouldn't have to wait for her for long. Entering the hall, the girl was surprised to see her sister next to her spouse. Ginger was sitting at Steve's feet. In parallel with Jennifer, her parents entered the room. The father was very unhappy with his oldest daughter's behavior. Ginger said that she simply tripped and fell. Nothing special had happened here. In fact, Steve really didn't like his sister Jennifer's behavior. He said she was being tactless and got up to leave. Ginger called out to him, asking him not to leave. She didn't like that someone was getting defensive about her sister. She ran after Steve grabbed his sleeve but stumbled and started to fall. Her parents saw the older daughter's behavior and were a little shocked. They had invested a lot in her education and didn't expect to see such behavior. Jennifer's mom tried to calm her husband down. She didn't want him to raise a scandal. The woman was very worried about the family's reputation. The father did not bitch. He began to express his indignation to his wife. He blamed her for his eldest daughter's behavior. He said it was a consequence of her improper upbringing. The mother exclaimed that she wasn't the only one raising the girls. So it was his fault too. In addition, Ginger said she didn't fall on purpose. He's exaggerating, making a big deal out of a simple situation. Ginger raised her voice from the floor. She asked for help to get up. Ginger had hurt her leg in the fall. The mother was angry. She turned to her eldest daughter and asked her to stop breaking the comedy. She ordered her not to moan and to get up quickly. Jennifer and Steve watched in silence as the couple argued. Jennifer was tired of her family constantly figuring things out. Even here, they couldn't help themselves from squabbling. The girl asked her parents to calm down. Her father listened to her words and immediately stopped talking. He said that the girl was right, apologized, and hurriedly left. The man referred to the large amount of work. He once again apologized to Steve and proposed to meet next time in some cozy restaurant. Steve replied in agreement. Jennifer's parents helped their eldest daughter up and headed out. Jennifer and Steve also went outside. The young couple walked silently through the city. Each was absorbed in their own thoughts. It was getting to be evening. Jennifer didn't notice a bicyclist riding behind her. Steve held the girl up with his hand so she wouldn't get hurt. "Remember I asked you not to help me? This is all probably because I'm embarrassed." Jennifer decided to come clean. "I'm ashamed that you saw my naughty side back then at the hotel. I realize that I'm like my relatives sometimes. I'm just as scandalous and shouty, and I'm very ashamed of it. I keep telling myself to be different from them, but I lose my temper every time. I apologize to you again for my behavior," said the girl to Steve without turning to him. "I couldn't tell you about my family, about how my sister, my mother, my father treats me. I couldn't tell you how I felt living in this house. I still hate to say that even now. To top it all off, I've seen your family. It's the exact opposite of mine. You have a lot of respect for each other. My reality is more violent." Eventually, the girl cried, "Forgive me, but in my opinion, this is the only way that will make you feel better," said Steve, and reached out his arms to the girl. He put his arms around her and pulled her against him. The girl was sobbing bitterly. Steve stroked her, urging her to calm down. He whispered that everything was all right, everything was getting better. Steve also pointed out that his house wasn't perfect either. Every family had its nuances. "I told you before that I ended up in a mental hospital because of cheating. I was 9 years old at the time. I looked into my older brother's room. He was working on the computer. He seemed really cool to me at the time. My grandmother came up to me and told me not to disturb my brother. My brother heard our conversation and asked me to come in. He said that little brother couldn't disturb him. I was interested in everything about my brother. I trusted him. My brother was very worried about not being able to pass the exam, so he didn't hold the glass and it broke. He asked me to take the blame. My brother said that everyone in the family loved me, so they would forgive me for breaking the glass. My brother gave me a chocolate candy for taking the blame. The most unpleasant thing about this situation is that it was my fault the babysitter got fired. My grandmother accused the girl of not looking after me properly, and that the broken glass could have traumatized me. Every day my brother's bullying became more and more dangerous, but he still asked me to take the blame, and every time he gave me a candy bar. The people at home believed that I was doing all the naughty things. It made them very upset. But I still thought I was doing the right thing. My brother did well in his exams. My whole family was happy, so I was happy too. My brother told me that he would ask me again to continue. It's important that I take the blame again. All this will help him pass another exam. I didn't know what that request would be. At that time, we had an old dog living in our house. She was found by our parents in the mountains. The dog was weak, but our parents wanted to take her out. My older brother believed that if he made a sacrifice to the deities, he would surely pass the next exam. He talked himself into believing that the dog was barely alive as it was. I got up at night to drink water and saw my brother strangling the dog with his hands. He explained to me that he had no more choice. It was the only thing that would help him pass the exam. Of course, the whole family was shocked. I was afraid to take the blame for the dog's death. I asked my brother to tell me what had happened. I said that he had done all the bad things before, but nobody believed me anymore, and my older brother refused to admit to anything. My grandmother told my mother to take care of the company. Times were tough at the time. Grandma promised that she would look after me herself. From then on, I was never without her supervision. One day I woke up to something pricking my hand. It was a candy bar. I went to my brother's room to give him the candy. I put it on the table and walked out. As I was leaving the room, my grandmother saw me. She reminded me again not to socialize with my older brother. That same day, my brother was taken to the hospital. He had been poisoned. The doctors said he ate a candy that had rat poison in it, and of course, no one believed I had nothing to do with it. My grandmother offered to send me to study abroad, but at first they put me in a psychiatric hospital. You see, there are skeletons in my family's closet too. I was also wounded by the man I loved. Eventually, things got better, and I went to school and made some friends there. So you're going to be okay in your life. Steve looked into Jennifer's eyes. He admitted to her that he had wanted revenge on his brother all along. But as time went on, those emotions subsided. Steve admitted to Jennifer that he was ashamed of his family too. He also hated to say that his own brother had sent him to a mental institution. Jennifer realized that with Steve they were similar. They both suffered because of their family. Jennifer became ashamed of the words she had said earlier. She claimed that Steve would never understand her, never feel her pain. Steve asked Jennifer to stop thinking of her family as an exuberance. It was necessary to move on with her life and enjoy each day. Steve promised Jennifer that he would protect her every second from now on. If it's just us with each other, then let's stick together, said Steve, pulling Jennifer close to him. Let's love ourselves, said Steve to the crying girl. The president's housekeeper was very worried that Jennifer and Steve didn't come back for a long time. They had left as early as afternoon, and now it was deep night outside the window. Finally, she saw two silhouettes walking. The housekeeper saw Steve and Jennifer's disheveled hair, saw the girl's crying face. Steve had a wet sweater. The housekeeper was afraid that the young people had quarreled. The housekeeper led the young ones to a room and hurriedly removed herself. They were given the same room. Jennifer and Steve decided that if they asked for another one, there would be various rumors. They decided to sleep here tonight. Steve said he would wash up now and quickly sort out his things. Jennifer was left alone in the room. She remembered how they stood hugged outside. At that moment, she had the warmest feelings for him. She wondered what Steve was feeling at that moment. In the bathroom, Steve was also thinking about Jennifer. He unequivocally liked this girl. "Don't be an idiot," said Steve to his reflection. Jennifer also took a shower. When she entered the room, Steve was already asleep. The girl was glad to see her sleeping spouse and tried to lie down next to him as quietly as possible. Jennifer looked at the sleeping Steve. She was grateful to him for telling her about his childhood. The girl's eyes filled with tears again. She felt sorry for herself and Steve. They both had a hard fate. The past had left a mark, influenced their behavior. She turned away from Steve so he wouldn't hear her crying. Jennifer felt Steve gently touch her face. Steve turned the girl around to face him and hugged her tightly. The girl lay silently listening to Steve's heartbeat. She was cozy and warm. Steve thought about dialing Jennifer. It was the first time she had gone to an important event on her own today. Steve wondered if she was feeling lonely. Jennifer called him first. She told him that she was at the hair salon right now. She is nervous but getting ready for the event. Steve asks her if she needs help. For example, to go with her so she won't be so anxious. The girl replied that no, she's fine on her own. She apologized to him, as she was a little busy, and promised to call a little later. Steve replied that he understood her. He would definitely wait. Steve hung up. What a fool, I shouldn't have told her I'd wait. I'm not a kid anymore, I don't have time to wait. Steve got up from the table and hurried toward Jennifer. Jennifer decided to step aside and dial Steve again. In the aisle, Jennifer bumped into a girl. Her bag fell to the floor, her makeup spilling out. Looking up, Jennifer was surprised to see her. In front of her was her former classmate Salma. She had been their class president in high school. Jennifer didn't want to socialize with her. Salma noted to herself that at school, Jennifer was always withdrawn. She was not always able to find common ground with her classmates. The girl dialed Steve, apologizing for not calling back immediately. In response, Steve apologized to her for the fact that the girl was on her own at the event. She must be lonely and not entirely comfortable there. Jennifer asked him not to worry, promising to dial him again when she decided to go home. Suddenly, the girl heard around the corner someone gossiping about her. Standing around the corner were her former classmates. They said that Jennifer was far from fashion. They also noted that there was a change in the girl's character. She became more open to talk freely with others, although at school she was withdrawn. Jennifer decided that never again in her life will not be silent. Any situation she didn't like, she would deal with that second. She boldly approached her former classmates. Jennifer told them that if they had any grievances, they should say it to her face, not behind her back. Without waiting for an answer, the girl went to the hall. This situation was being watched by Salma. She approached Jennifer and said that the marriage had done her good, that it was much nicer to see her talking openly rather than holding herself back. Those words brought Jennifer relief. She realized that the goal had been accomplished. She was changing. Over the course of the event, Jennifer had become very tired. She felt better when Steve was around. She thought it was still worth asking him to go with her. The girl picked up her phone to see what time it was and noticed that she had 8 missed calls. It was her husband trying to reach her. Jennifer dialed Steve. She said that she couldn't hear his calls because of the loud music. The girl said that she met former classmates and that she was able to be brave. She liked to see such a change in herself. Steve slowly approached her. The girl was engrossed in the conversation, so she didn't hear his footsteps. I guess my classmates are right. All these changes have happened in me because of a happy marriage, said Jennifer into the phone. What makes you think you don't have any credit for that? Jennifer heard Steve's voice behind her. If you weren't a smart girl, I never would have married you, said Steve with a gentle smile on his face. The change in character came about because of your efforts. You shouldn't minimize your merits. You are simply wonderful, said Steve, looking the girl over the head. Jennifer looked into his eyes with gratitude. She had indeed married well.